Hello, I'm James and welcome to another episode of the Oz F1 Show. In this episode, we review the Spanish Grand Prix in Barcelona. And I'm joined, as always, by only one half of the equation of the usual other end of the Zoom call, and it's allegedly the sexiest voice in Formula One, and also what I heard yesterday, the voice of Darth Vader. It's Campy. Hello, mate.
How are you, mate? Good morning. It's a very solid introduction for me. The sexiest voice in F1. I don't know. I really don't know about that, but thank you. I'll take it. I've got a head for radio, so I'll take as much as I can possibly get, I think.
Mate, as I said to Bev, who messaged yesterday saying she was listening to our pre-drinks podcast, and which she doesn't normally do because it's not a MotoGP weekend for her, so she thought she'd listen to F1. She said, geez, Campy's voice is so great, it sounds like Darth Vader. And I'm like, surely this is the only reason we're successful is because of your voice.
Oh, no. No, let's not talk about that.
Certainly not because of our faces. Let's be honest. But Campy, guess what?
Absolutely.
Spain was boring. Who would have thought?
Snorefest.
Snores in Spanish is what happened.
Yeah, with a lisp. If you can snore with a lisp, I probably can. I assure you.
Oh, mate. Well, if you didn't listen to our pre-drinks podcast ahead of the Spanish Grand Prix, jump back and do that first. You'll find that from yesterday. But, mate, we might as well just jump straight into it because, look, the start of the race was the most exciting. Even Anthony Davidson, live from the Sky Pad back in the UK, relegated back to being satellite link fed into commentary coverage, was saying it's all about the start and then basically the rest of it, some potential strategy jumps, but mainly it's a DRS train. Overall, we were pretty happy with this race, weren't we, because of Daniel Ricciardo?
Oh, great start. He mentioned that in his post-race. I think we talked about it yesterday. The first 30 seconds of his race was going to define what actually happened. He actually got past Leclerc as well on the start, going into turn one. I had no idea what was happening up the front. I was sheerly focused 7 places back. So I missed the start until the replays, but yeah, great jump. He got the Alpine of Ocon,
Carlos.
And who else did he get? Carlos was in front of him, yep, and he actually had Leclerc, but he didn't quite have the angle going into turn 2, so he had to back out of it. Shame he didn't get Bottas where Leclerc got Bottas, but because he had to back out so much of turn 1, because he went on the outside, he didn't get the run. But, yeah, great start. It's what we want to see. And he sort of held that position for the whole race, really, until Perez eventually got him. I mean, that was always going to happen. Quicker car, but he did well to defend it for however many laps, 45-odd laps or
Yeah,
something,
he came out
46.
saying that he's obviously a lot happier with what he's doing this weekend and the McLaren, and certainly that he wasn't as fast as the Red Bull, but as you say, for holding up Perez for so long, even though he was weaving, and which is not illegal, it's not against the restrictions, but just count on Michael Massey to change his mind mid-race about a ruling, and he was told that he had to stop the weaving. But really, really good job.
What a joke. Drivers weave all the time to get out of, especially on a long straight like that. You can weave across to break the toe. As long as they're not moving twice under braking, which causes the issues, there should be no problem. But you know what? You had Perez whinging and you had his best mate, Karen Horner, on the pit wall talking to Michael Massey. And Michael Massey, you tit, grow a spine. Dear Lord, we want some consistency, but when it's on the live broadcast that you've been telling people not to weave, mate, it's not a good look.
Yeah, you're not wrong. Interesting also that we got a live feed from Toto to Race Control. That's the first time I've heard team principal to Race Control radio about blue flags and Mazepin, again, what a surprise, and being able to push Lewis past.
Yeah, look, it was a pretty crucial part of the race as well, wasn't it? Max Verstappen had pitted and he did about a 4.5 second pit stop. He also got held up from Perez when he got back onto track after a lap. So Hamilton was really in the box seat for a solid lap. They should have pitted in the next lap if they wanted that track position. But because of what happened with Mazepin and the blue flags, they didn't obey them really. That is why he didn't pit that very next lap and get the lead. So I can understand the frustration, but geez, how good a move.
Absolutely. Well, let's start at the very back of the pack, as we normally do, Campy. We'll start with Haas and Mazepin with no surprises at all, finishing in last of the runners. In 19th, of course, Yuki Tsunoda, the only person who didn't finish the race this weekend. We spoke about him yesterday, didn't we, Campy? And we were sort of saying maybe there's a glimmer here of something that was good when he did his test in that Mercedes in 2019. But the dude can't even obey blue flags and get out of the way of the Mercedes coming up behind him. Talk about grid potato.
He is the absolute grid potato. He is not doing anything for his stocks for the future. He's just becoming the laughing stock the longer and longer.
And even Martin Brundle just having stabs as many times as he wants. Like, always coming up to Mazepin, and we know passing him is going to be interesting.
Now, before we jump into for the full race review, Jim, I'm actually not sure if you got to see it on KO last night. There was Discord chat was going mental about the live feed being uninterrupted. Talk to me. Were you actually able to watch most of the race?
Talking about potatoes in F1, and KO and Foxtel are the biggest in terms of the awareness and production of not even the production, being able to show it in here in Australia. KO is terrible. In every single way, KO is terrible. It costs us a fortune. The live coverage, even when it's on, doesn't work properly. There was a pre-recorded interview put up instead because they dropped the feed from Sky. And even that interview started having lines through it, so it was all choppy all over the place. I had people messaging me on Facebook and in the Discord as well going, what's going on with Foxtel? What's going on with KO? We've dropped the feed. I don't understand. I'm paying all this money. Can you guys finally pick up the rights to Formula One and have your own streaming platform? And the answer is yes. If you have a spare 10 mil, please reach out. We would like to do that. But seriously, though, for people who claim that Formula One is the fastest growing sport for them in terms of numbers and people watching, they care the least about this sport. They care more about cricket and AFL, and that's fine, okay, get that. But when we're up at stupid o'clock at night trying to watch it and we've got issues going on with the broadcast, it's not as simple as, we'll just change over to, free-to-air or whatever else. That's how we get it. And the only other way to get Formula One here is to get an illegal stream or torrent, which is the whole point of why rights exist in the first place, that we don't have to do that. I would be happy to have normal feed and happy to pay for it if it was good. So as far as I'm concerned, we should petition Formula One to allow F1 TV access here and remove that rights from Foxtel and KO.
Yeah, well, my little gripe, I went to go and watch the F2 race.
F3.
And I didn't get to see it live. So F3, sorry. So I just presumed that I'd be able to watch it on demand. No, I can't get it on demand on Foxtel. You only get the F3 Championship demand on, I presume you get it on KO. I don't have KO, but it's the same. It's 1 and 2 are the same. So that's my gripe. So I'm quite shitty about that. And I missed the first 10 minutes of the feature race in which Jack Doohan, our boy, superstar.
I was going to say, don't know if he's a superstar yet. We won't from last year.
We won't go that quick, but he got a second. Real solid result. It was under a fair bit of pressure. He was the head of a DRS train with about 10 laps to go. And he managed to break out of the 1 second gap to the driver behind him and, pulled out a comfortable... He was 3.5 seconds behind the leader, and there was another 4 seconds back to third place. So, great result for him. He needed it. We weren't super critical of him last year, but we were just pretty honest about his results, and we didn't want to rag on him too much because, did he warrant that Red Bull lead last year? Absolutely not. But this year, to put it on pole, to have pole for 99.9% of the session, then to get pipped after the session had stopped by 6/1000ths of a second. Mate, he's driving well. So it's great for Aussie fans. We get to watch the son of an absolute motorsport superstar and his dad, Mick, 5-time World MotoGP 500cc champion. So that's good. That's just another story for us that we get to watch as well. But I would like to be able to go back and watch the race on demand.
I'm sure instead of the on-demand race, you will be shown a replay of the 2008 X Games or something.
Oh God! Don't even start me. Look, we could go on. Look, they're just shit.
Yeah, really.
I pay money for
we're
this.
not alone.
Look, you lost the rugby union this year, which I'm an avid follower. I've said before that I can't watch Supercross live. I can see highlights on YouTube before I see you broadcasting it from some shitty American channel. What else?
Yeah,
there's heaps.
And if you're listening from overseas, anyway. I apologise, but I know in many other countries you face similar issues with providers who are just broadcasting Sky and not doing their own thing. So I don't think we're alone in that respect, Campy. But certainly for Australians, and certainly on the Discord chat, lots of people having massive issues with KO. What a surprise. But yes, they're the real potato. And also worth mentioning as well, Campy, for F3, we saw the return of Juan Manuel Correa, and hopefully I'm pronouncing that right, but of course after his accident with Antoine Hubert in Spa, it's the first time he's back in an F3 car. So really good. I think he managed to score some points this weekend, but good to see.
He did score some points in the feature race. Got a 10th or an 8th in the race 2 and 14th in race 1. So, yeah, he's been really good. It's good for him. Good story. Must be tough to come back from a horror crash like that.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, let's talk about Schumacher because he actually had a pretty decent race, Campy. He ended up finishing in 18th, which is a shame, but the Haas is just not a car that is able to be challenging towards the mid-pack, but he had some really good challenges with Nick Latifi, with George Russell, and even Antonio Giovinazzi at one point. So he is getting better and better each weekend.
He got a great start. I believe he jumped up in from, where did he start on the grid? 18th, I think. But he was up to 15th ahead of George Russell. Great experience for him on a track where it's hard to pass. He got some valuable experience racing hard against some of his fellow compatriots on the grid. He'll only get better and better and better, and these are the sort of little things that we're looking for Mick Schumacher this year. He's not going to be getting top 10s. He's not going to be podiums. For him, the goals are to get out of Q3 a couple of times in a piece of crap car and get some solid wheel-to-wheel racing under his belt this year where he can. A lot of the time, unfortunately, he's just going to be driving around as a glorified test driver at some tracks because they're that far off. But, yeah, it's a great weekend for him. I think he'd be pretty confident going in for the rest of the season. He's just going to get better and better and better. And he's secured a drive for next year. I think he had a 2-year contract anyway. But if he keeps doing this, he will have a contract into the future.
And certainly,
the F1 grid.
I mean, the car this year and last year was terrible, the Haas, but now they're focusing on 2022, and we know that they've got a little outpost within the Ferrari factory itself to help develop parts. So hopefully we might be able to see him a little further up the grid next year, which, look, we're saying that at everyone, so we can't have everyone in first, obviously, but it would be nice for him to be up towards the front.
It would be nice. It'd be good if Ferrari actually gave them some genuine help. That would be...
They'd have to help themselves first.
That would be good. They would, but we found Wally this weekend. He was sitting on a...
Yeah, that's so great.
He's... How was his sitting position on the pit wall at the start of the race? I was like,
weird cat.
Get it together. Just looked odd.
Let's talk about Williams.
Anyway.
And firstly, I don't want to talk about drivers. I want to talk about the team principal, Simon Roberts, who was on the pit wall for Sky Sports for this weekend. And what a breath of fresh air, Campy, to have a team principal that is supportive of his drivers, that is supportive of his team, happy to be there, sharing some strategy insights as what they're doing, and not being bitchy at any point at all.
Yes, I think you're right. This is the first we've seen from the Williams team. He's the sort of first public face that has stepped forward, from my memory anyway. They don't get a lot of media attention outside of the big three, big four teams and their principals, and the whatever you call them, race control. I can't remember the actual word they call them, but yeah, he was awesome. He was great. It's easy to listen to cynical stuff and get cynical yourself. It's good to have some positivity around. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was great. He had some good insights. Absolutely supportive. I mean, yeah, it's good. It's what you want to see from management of an F1 side. I mean, he's got a really good driver in George Russell. So, what's not to be happy about? Latifi, he's performing okay, in my opinion. Certainly not creating the headlines which he'd want to be creating, but he's a suit. Like George is a genuine superstar in this team. Moving forward, if they want to become a destination team for drivers coming into Formula One and then moving them on into the second phase of their career with a better midfield team or a top team, these are the drivers that they need to do a good job with right now. Got new management come in, set the tone for the organisation that, hey, Williams is a great destination for you to come, not for just your Formula One experience. We'll teach you all the off-track stuff. We'll better prepare you to jump into a top flight
And let's not
team.
forget, Campy.
And I think that's what they're doing.
Not too long ago that they were up towards the front themselves. You think of Valtteri Bottas driving a Williams was getting podiums.
Yeah, well, I mean, that was because they had the Merc engine in the 2014 era, which was so much better than everyone else. They sort of dropped away from that turbo hybrid era, but they've got a legacy in Formula One as a team. It looks a bit different now with none of the Williams family being involved with the team at all. But yeah, their pedigree is huge. Their history is huge for our sport, and yeah, I think the better they get, the better it will be for F1.
Yeah, you're not wrong. George Russell finishing in 14th and Latifi in 16th. George was very close, and Tommy T, shout out to you, mate, because you'll be very happy about this, to not score a championship point again. And it's because his tyres fell off the cliff, didn't they, Campy? He was, if it wasn't for Alonso, or if he could got it past Alonso, maybe he would have been able to avoid the much faster cars behind him, but unfortunately he went from 11th to 14th very quickly.
Yeah, there was a big DRS train, and Sainz was Ocon was the head of it. There was a bigger one, I think, further back with Alonso. At one point, I think it was Alonso, it was Russell, Gasly. Who else was in there? Someone, Vettel. But it's good to see him put the car in the right place for that stage of the race, because if he does that at a Monaco, he's guaranteed points. You can't pass. Even the car is the biggest piece of crap. Tyres burning off. So he put the car in the right place. He's doing the right things. Unfortunately, he doesn't have the chassis. He's got the engine, but the chassis is not there. Chassis doesn't support what he needs to be able to do. But yeah, he's on the up. Good on him.
It'll be good to see Williams next year again, like we just said about Haas, be able to be further towards the front. And look, they've got the investment now, and that's where they'll be focusing. It'll be interesting later in the year as we start talking about it. Well, I think we're going to see next year's Formula One car in Silverstone, they've said, so we can actually visualise what it looks like. But it'll be interesting to see the conversations going on about George's career and Valtteri's career, and whether or not maybe they make a swap and VB finds himself back in Williams, and Williams actually being semi-decent. But anyway, that's in the future.
What do you think will happen there? Let's war game this out. If you're Mercedes, what do you do?
I think at the moment, Lewis is probably not going to want George as a teammate, is he? In terms of his career and his ability to score world championships and all that sort of stuff, he knows that Valtteri is a good wingman for that. You know, he gets out of the way, although he didn't get out of the way super quickly this weekend, but eventually he did. Don't think George is going to be as sort of pliable in that respect. So if I was Mercedes and Toto, you want to keep Valtteri because we know that he's a decent enough driver, even though he hasn't had the best of luck in the last, well, basically any of his years in Mercedes. But you find another Mercedes-powered car and you put George there. So maybe you look at something like Aston Martin with Seb leaving or something like that and Mercedes putting some pressure on to say, go here. But, I mean, ultimately, I think the logical answer is he's going to take that second seat in Mercedes because if he doesn't or if Mercedes don't sort of respond to that, then he's going to be looking elsewhere. And I'm not sure Toto wants that to happen because he's their future plan, right?
Yep. Yeah. Well, for me, on the flip side, why do you change a winning lineup? You know, next year we start again. We've got ground effect cars, totally whole new concept brought to F1. I think Mercedes somewhat owes Valtteri the right to have another crack with a new generation of cars to see how he adapts and to see what the rest of the grid is doing. And if they are as dominant as they have been for the last 8 years, next year, why would you change a winning lineup just to bring George in to keep a young kid happy? When Valtteri could perform like this for the next decade, he's that good. I'm frustrated for VB in the sense that he just doesn't have the race pace at the moment against Lewis. I mean, Lewis is under pressure and driving astonishingly well, but yeah, I think Mercedes owe it to VB to give him another shot next year.
We know that he can drive
because they've got time. We don't need to rush these things either. Like, let's get real. You know, Russell's got another 10, 12, 13 years in the sport. Bottas maybe another 3 or 4. So
the British
where I
press
sit on it.
Also at the beginning of this week or last weekend, the tail end was starting to suggest that there would be a switch halfway through the year, which is just dumb, firstly. Nope. And I also loved Valtteri's response to that. We're not the team who does that in this paddock.
No, absolutely. But he fits into that team so well in the sense that he went into bat for him on this one. He said, that's bullshit. It's not going to happen. That's not the team I know. It's not how we operate. It's not how we do things. But you got to remember that Sky Sports and the British press have a big sway on public opinion about what goes on in the sport. You know, and they're always going to be pro-British, like we're pro-Danny Rick. And if they can create a narrative around that, the more the stories will pop up. I think there's more fuel. You know, there's more fuel in the paddock that those rumours will become more and more and more. Whether they've got credibility or not doesn't matter. But if they can change the court of public opinion, then they've ultimately got a say in what happens because teams do listen to that stuff as well. So
yeah, you're not wrong. All right, let's talk about Alfa Romeo. Kimi Raikkonen in 12th, at least he finished this weekend, and Giovinazzi in 15th. Geez, they kept Kimi Raikkonen out for a very long time on those mediums, didn't they?
Yeah, he probably went 3 or 4 laps too long in the end. But Kimi was but that compromised his race at the back end as well. Do I think he would have passed those cars to get in the points? Probably not. But his race was compromised and he definitely lost at least 4 to 5 seconds in that stage where he went too long on his first stint. But yeah, Kimi's a star. Once again, he beat Giovinazzi. I had Giovinazzi on as a roughie for points, but Raikkonen, the guy's made of the right stuff, isn't he? Wheeled a wheel off the start, made some places up, put himself in the right position, right strategy going long in the first stint. Unfortunately, it didn't come off for him, but, I mean, for Alfa Romeo, that's a good result, I think, having Kimi in 12th. And
Giovinazzi's obviously suffering with that pit stop disaster where either the tyre was deflated or there was no air in it. As I said in the Discord, I like the way that the mechanic told the rest of the pit crew that the tyre had no air in it because he punched it furiously in front of everyone, showing that he could get the rim underneath the rubber, which, of course, caused a whole massive thing, but better that happen in the pit box rather than him clearing out and, of course, you know, even being further down the pit lane or having to pull over and, you know, a yellow flag, safety car, whatever else. So good spot.
A safety car would have spiced up that race.
As would rain. Last night. And I think Dave Munnis said there's a chance of rain, so stop saying that. Dave?
They say there's a chance. Last year, they told me every race there's a chance of rain. Slim, rain's coming. It's on its way. And it never happened.
Classic. Every bloody time.
So,
hey, Campy, let's talk about Aston Martin because Stroll really had some moments there that I was like, oh, it doesn't look legit. Talking about race control not being happy about Danny Rick weaving. You're only really supposed to make one move under braking. That's the written rule. And tell you what, he moved very, very late against one of the Alpines, I believe, and it was just like, oh, okay, that was almost a very big accident.
Yep. Well, what do? You got a guy that's trying to get in the points. He thinks the car should be further up, and the media team, or the marketing team at Aston Martin has come out this week and said, "Oh, we bought some upgrades to the car. The car's going to get faster and faster." And this is the weekend. Well, it wasn't. So they're talking shit. But he wants to be competitive. I don't mind aggressive racing when it's there, but I think we're lucky nothing happened. We were lucky we didn't have an incident. He's had enough experience in F1 that he shouldn't be driving and doing those things. Yeah. As for Vettel, my man, you can tell me about Vettel.
Sebastian Vettel is...
Is he done?
Did we say that he was done at the first race? Yes.
Cooked,
I think he's now well done.
Tommy T used.
To be honest. Look, he had glimpses, right? But I'm also thinking now even on my own stance about young drivers. You know, I said last year that I'm sick of all this young talent being forced up the chain. And I was semi-excited about Fernando Alonso coming back into the sport. But when you're looking at Vettel, Alonso and Raikkonen fighting for one world championship point, you know, the glory days are well and truly over. We know that Kimi Raikkonen's probably done this year. We know Fernando Alonso, however, is at least here for 2 more years. And he might get his head around the next generation of car, and same for Seb Vettel. But we know Seb has really struggled with turbo hybrid. So maybe the next year and the new reg changes will be his saving grace, but he's only doing it for himself, right? Like, no one can challenge the fact that he's a 4-time world champion. You know, he's exceptionally well respected in the paddock. He's got a good relationship with his closest rival, Lewis Hamilton. He's got a great relationship with Mick Schumacher like he had with Michael Schumacher. That's a really lovely story in itself. You know, everyone is good guy Seb off track, but on track, everyone's like, oh, it's depressing to look at. Quite honestly,
it is. It is a shame. I mean, we should have had the regs this year, but because of COVID, if you weren't aware, that everything got pushed back. These guys are hanging out for next year, and this year, unfortunately, is going to be defined by the teams other than Mercedes and Red Bull that are waiting for next year and to get on track, to have a crack, to genuinely challenge for a world championship if they get it right. We've seen in the past things like happened to Braun. You know, Ferrari had a dominant era, and then Renault came out with Alonso and knocked them off the perch. And then it was pretty tight for a few years until the Red Bull era of 4 years straight, which wasn't as dominant as the Mercedes era. But then we moved straight into a Mercedes era where it's been a 2-horse race for a number of years. Now, as fans, we're hanging out for that change. It's just unfortunate we don't have it now when we really want it. We've got to wait another year, and unfortunately, for guys like Alonso, Vettel, Raikkonen, they're not in the top teams, but they're hanging out for this next chance. It wouldn't surprise me if... I mean, that's the carrot that's dangling in front of them, right? It wouldn't surprise me if all 3 of them are out of the sport next year. At the end of the year, they've gone into the new cars and said, it's not what we thought it was going to be.
Because conversely, who knows? Fernando Alonso went across to Renault back in the day, won 2 world championships, and we know that Mark Webber should have gone instead of Fisichella, but it's okay. We'll let that go eventually. You know, and prove that he could do that. So, look, we're not questioning the skill of any of these drivers, including Seb Vettel. It's just the fact that in this car, he is not comfortable. In this regulation period of Formula One, he has never been comfortable, and he's not having a great time. Anyway, let's talk about Alpine. Campy. Fernando finishing in 17th, he blames Renault strategy, and I say, Renault strategy. because
Renault.
this is what we saw in Danny Rick's first year in Renault in 2019, and in fact last year as well. Their strategy has always been pretty subpar.
Yep, and he's got every right to be shitty at them as well. I mean, after his first pit stop, he went out into traffic. I was like, what are we doing here? He lost time, got back to his points, got back into the points, but because of the strategy, tyres didn't last, and he pitted. I think he pitted in the end with like 10, 15 laps to go, when it was always going to be a two-stop. They've been talking about it for 4 days, it's going to be a two-stop. These teams run simulations, and 99% of the times in the simulations it's a two-stop. There's the 1 in 100 chance that you make the one-stop work if incidents happen around it. They committed to the two-stop too late, and it's a shame for him because he wants points.
Yeah,
he needs to be racing in the points. The fact that Ocon's up there and really the tip of that train all race in 7th or whatever it was.
Yeah,
frustrating for Alonso. And so we should be angry at the team. I don't mind when drivers are shitty when they're right.
At Yuki Tsunoda. Yes. But Ocon is outperforming Alonso at the moment, and I know we're giving everyone a couple of races to sink in. Is Monaco a hard right, by the way, for that, when we stop giving the excuse that, we really have to give this many races before we see what people are like in their new cars?
I've always said 6. I think I stretched it at 10 last week afterwards. And I don't want to sound like we're having the same conversation.
We don't need to defend Danny Rick this time, though, so maybe we can say Monaco.
Yeah, well, look, I penciled in Monaco. For me, I'm not talking about anyone else. For me, I was like, right, I'm going to make my decision on Danny Rick at Monaco because that's his track. That's where he's good. He seems to have figured that out before that destination. But again, Alonso's excited by this car because it's different to what he had in his last experience in F1. Do these guys want to go back to V8s and V10s? Absolutely. They can drive the wheels off those things and know how to do it and drive on the limit for long periods of time. But these cars, you got to be gentle with them. You got to be really cute in the way that you approach the driving style. You got to be really nice to the tyres, not putting them under load, and then in the middle of the race start saving fuel and conserving tyres so we're not braking for 150 metres into a corner. Hence why Perez was able to make that move on Danny Rick, by the way, because Danny Rick clearly in conservation mode to make a strategy work. They thought they were going to go one stop and, hindsight, they probably would have pitted him a bit earlier. But, that's the frustration with their sport and particularly
absolutely.
A guy like Alonso.
Okay, AlphaTauri, Tsunoda didn't finish. Something went wrong with the car. Did he spin and stall and anti-stall kicked in or something happened and he just wasn't able to get it going again? The one thing that did happen is he had pulled over to the side on the newly surfaced corner 10, so maybe he was actually at 11, which doesn't exist as a turn anymore, and he was getting out of the car as the car started rolling backwards. He was like, ooh, what do I do here?
Just let it roll, mate.
Just let it roll.
Yeah, he had a good first weekend, and he's had a stinker for the last 3 weekends. So the last 3 race weekends. So he'll be looking to bounce back at Monaco, but Monaco's a track that he could bin it pretty easily. We
haven't been there for such a long time. Also, it's
been.
Yeah, we went there last year.
We missed it last year.
Another driver who commented on Yuki's speaking out against the team was Marcus Erickson. Randomly, shot a tweet out saying he's just starting to look like a child now and throwing his toys out of the cot rather than being a fully focused racing driver. Sorry, Marcus, don't agree. I love the attitude, and it's refreshing to hear drivers actually speak their mind and not being politically correct. It's like if you play F1 2020 and you always choose the wanker answer to the press.
Well, he has been living in America and driving IndyCar, and Americans are the first to put their opinion across. So they're probably rubbing it off on him. stop taking pot shots from across the ditch, mate.
But Pierre Gasly,
no need.
5-second penalty for not stopping in the correct spot in the starting box. That's a pretty rookie error. He was really annoyed with himself after the race as well, Campy. But he did finish in the championship points in 10th. He could have had 9th, though, if he didn't have that 5-second penalty before they could work on the car in his pit stop.
Yeah, rookie mistake, but he made it. He gets a pass. He's been driving well. He's outperforming that car. I don't think he got qualifying right this weekend. I think he's pretty frustrated himself with that. So, you got to give him... People make mistakes. He is allowed a mistake because he's been doing really well for the last... all of last season. Not all of last season, but the majority of last season he was good. This season he's come out and he's pants Sonoda and make him look pretty rookie to the point where I don't think he will have... he'll probably have a new teammate. He's just going to fend off teammates the next 3 years. I think they're going to come in. They're not going to meet the standard, and Red Bull is going to swat them away. I think that's what he's taken over that Kvyat role.
Well, and there's certainly lots of Red Bull junior talent, Campy, not far away. Yeah.
Yeah. So who's coming up?
Well, that's who
Jack
I was
Dillon,
thinking.
obviously.
He's a few years away, but let's get 3
He's a
Aussies
few
into the
years
top
off
tier,
now,
mate.
but-
That would be nice. Then maybe actually the country would start paying attention properly. Unlikely.
Well, maybe we could get some state government investment in some racing
that'd be
facilities down here and get rid of some of the the nanny state car rules that we have down here. Give people a chance to go and drive fast where they can.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
Bloody hell. Just like Sydney's done, New South Wales with Sydney Motorsport Park, massive investment, and the Ferrari Academy's based there. Not sure why, but, well, I do know why, because the Victorian government, because they're a fucking shit show. And we're a nanny state.
You can listen to Campy's
anyway.
political
Moving on.
podcasts.
Moving
I
on.
can't believe it's not Campy.
Mate, I reached out to Paul Murray and I thought, mate, me and you would go pretty well, I reckon. We look similar.
You challenge him for the sexiest voice in the far-right conservative elements. Campy, careful.
No. It was tongue-in-cheek,
Don't mind Paul Murray.
tongue-in-cheek.
Let's talk about Ferrari. Carlos Sainz finishing in 7th and Charles Leclerc finishing in 4th. It has to be said, I wasn't expecting him to actually be up towards that point. I would have thought, as we both said yesterday, that Perez would have been in that 4th position. Campy, talk to me about what you think about Carlos Sainz's race.
He had more pace in the car, clearly. The Ferraris were clearly quicker than McLaren this weekend. Unfortunately for Sainz, he was stuck behind Perez and Danny Rick, and that was the story of his race. He couldn't pass either of them, for the whole race, so he's stuck in that possession. They had things in the pit stop windows, but it didn't come across. I mean, those two had, I think him and Danny Rick did their second pit stop at the exact same time. Is that right? Which, I mean, Ferrari, in hindsight, probably wanted to go a lap earlier or a lap later. They reacted at the same time. Frustrating for him, but this is what F1 dishes up sometimes on tracks like this, where it's hard to pass. So he was great. Talk us through the Leclerc's race.
He had an amazing getaway, and as you said at the top of the pod, Danny Rick was almost past him coming into 2, but he held him off, which was well done, and he held up Bottas for a very long time. I mean, this is a car that is nowhere near as fast as a Mercedes. However, we know that Mercedes struggle at following, and Bottas specifically struggles more than Lewis Hamilton in following other cars. He's just not able to... I don't know, something about his driving style just doesn't fit in the same as how Lewis does. Because if VB's up front, boom, gone. Like, see you later. He's all over it. But just couldn't get past Charles at all. And it only really, Charles was just happy to hold him up, I think, for as long as possible to be able to get into that position. He was kind of going, maybe I'm on for 3rd. But after the race, he said he was very, very happy with a 4th, noting that that's really ahead of where... they thought that they would be, and of course, being ahead of the McLarens, both of them, as in points-wise, Charles ahead of Daniel and Carlos ahead of Lando, was a very important weekend for them.
Yeah, double points finish. I thought his race was excellent. I really did. He was able to run a race pace. He had clean air as well, so it wasn't like Sainz. I think Sainz could potentially have run that if he had clean air. But, yeah, he ran a race pace and he gapped McLaren. He gapped Danny Rick by, that 10 to 15 seconds over the course of the first stint. And you're right, he held up Bottas. It was good to see Ferrari. We haven't seen them like that, particularly not last year. So they're moving in the right direction. I think they'll ultimately end up third in the Constructors' Championship. There's still a big gap between them to the Red Bull, but I thought it was excellent drive by Leclerc. I was really impressed with it. He got the start, made up the position. Oh, no, he didn't. Yeah, he did. Got in front of VB. That was weird. Well, I don't know what happened to VB in a 3. It was like he missed a gear or got off the gas because he was in front, and then
it was bizarre. Anyway. But again, Charles made the most of it. Again, I think he's very, very much the top tier driver that lots of people say that he is. I would agree with that completely. Let's talk about McLaren. Lando Norris had a bit of a nothing race. Campy, we didn't see much of him. He was sort of languishing around in 10th for a lot of it, but finished in 8th. A bit of he wouldn't be totally stoked with this weekend, would he?
No. But again, he was behind Sainz. So he's stuck in that 3 to 4 car of the 4 of them with Danny Rick, Perez, Sainz and himself. And he's the 4th car. He's not going to pass those cars. McLaren clearly didn't have the race pace or the qualifying pace that they have shown in the first 3 races. But it shouldn't be unsurprising to us because if you go back to last year, there was 13, 14 tracks that McLaren excelled at. But there was tracks that they were worse than both the Racing Point, whatever you call it, Aston Racing Point, and
Renault.
The Renault of last year.
Yes, it is.
Becoming a thing, isn't it?
Renault.
So it shouldn't be surprising to us that McLaren is still struggling on tracks, on certain tracks. I think as the pace come out of that car and Ferrari got better, no, I just think it's track specific at the moment. So, he'd be frustrated. He'd be really frustrated. Got held up on his qualifying lap, of which he only got 1. So,
but can I just say, good that he let Daniel pass so quickly after the second pit stop. He could have held up Carlos a little bit better, I think. Well, maybe not. It just was at the point down the pit straight, and Carlos went, "See you later." But I think good. I think we're all messaging in the Discord chat going, it's going to be interesting to see whether or not he repays the favour from a few races ago, and there was just no issue whatsoever. Which, again, the reason why McLaren did so well last year is because Carlos and Lando worked well as a team. We're seeing that again with Daniel and Lando, and I'm happy for that. And maybe that will be the reason that we end up seeing McLaren maybe just pipping Ferrari rather to some points. They're still 5 points ahead of Ferrari in the championship at the moment. But Daniel... Yeah, it's not much.
Is that all?
Daniel needs to win Monaco, if you don't mind, just to put McLaren back up towards the top. But he had a much better weekend. We set up at the top. There'll be a lot of people now, hopefully, probably not in the Australian press because they suck, backing off a little bit.
The Australian press needs some perspective.
They have no idea what they're talking about. There's some AFL journalists writing about Formula One. Like, come on, guys.
Not some BS pot-shotting from the side because they've done 20 minutes worth of research. Just no idea. Anyway, I think Danny Rick, he'll be penciling in Monaco.
Yeah.
He loves that track. He's a god round that track. He's awesome. We've seen what he can do there, particularly in the Red Bulls. And he qualified 4th or 5th in a Renault in his first or second year. I can't remember when it was. Oh, it would have been the first because he didn't race there in his second year. But, I think it's Danny Rick's big chance. I think he'll put it top 3 qualifying. He'll be able to extract some of that pace. And hopefully something happens to a Bottas or a Perez or a Verstappen or even a Hamilton. They make a mistake and it costs them big time in the race. And Danny Rick can jump on that and get his first podium 5 races into McLaren. He'll be sitting there going, probably haven't had the results I wanted, but I've ended up in the points the first 4 races. Got my first podium after the 5th. We finally got some momentum moving forward. And on paper, we'll be sitting there going, Sainz had the better of him. in the first couple of races, but I'm looking at it on paper and I think Danny Rick's better.
And that will happen further down the year, as you say, and the more races we get to, it's going to be, of course Daniel's in fourth. Or of course he got a podium and picked up the scraps after, Bottas and Perez crashed out or whatever ends up happening. But you're right, he's opportunistic when it comes to being able to put that car in places, or put any car, I should say, in places, and specifically in McLaren, which rather is a strong car and stronger than the Renault from last year. All right.
Renault.
Red Bull, Verstappen in second and Perez in fifth. Perez had a bit of a shocking weekend. We said this yesterday for qualifying. Had some shoulder injury and some pain. Apparently he was all good ahead of this race in the morning, but geez, Daniel just was holding him up and you just couldn't get past, and it sort of ruined his race, didn't it?
Did ruin his race. He's not where Red Bull needed him to be because he could have acted as a rear gunner and put pressure on Bottas. But the gap is real between Perez and Verstappen. I think Perez is a better driver than the last 3 second drivers that Red Bull have had in Kvyat, Albon and Gasly. But he's still not getting the job done. And on paper, we've seen this narrative before. Is it going to continue to play out, or is he going to get better and better? I can understand mistakes in qualifying when they're driving on the limit. Unfortunately for him, it ruined his race weekend on a track you can't pass, and he got stuck behind Danny Rick. But once he got past him, it's not like he was setting the track alight and setting fastest laps and moving on up the road. You can see after the pit stop phases that he only came out 2 seconds in front of Danny Rick. So it's not like the raw pace was there that Verstappen had either. So, interesting.
And Max.
Interesting. When do we start putting pressure on Perez for
a drive
next
that's
year?
a good question because he's only got a year contract, right? He's only in Red Bull for this year. Look, definitely after the summer break. And you put me on the spot. Look, let's have the break first and see what happens. But it's not like he's doing a terrible job. It's just he's not doing enough to be with Max and to be with Valtteri. Obviously, the car is quick. Like, it looked a lot quicker than the McLaren following Danny Rick. But it's just that level of driver. Again, when you want to highlight that Daniel is a better driver, in our very humble opinion and correct opinion, than Sergio. Always. But Max was left hanging out in the breeze, and it was Hungary 2019 again, wasn't it, Campy? I don't understand why Red Bull just didn't cover off Lewis straight away, because it wouldn't have been no issue. He would have come out a second or two ahead, and we know what Max is like on a fresh set of boots with Lewis behind him. Would have been fine. Instead, they've said, you'll last to the end of the race. He'll catch you on the final lap. No, he won't. He caught us so much sooner than that. It was a disaster.
In their defence, I think Red Bull were thinking about track position to Valtteri Bottas.
Yeah.
They didn't want to give up first to drop back to third in order to do it. Whereas Mercedes, they got all the cards in their hand. They got a quicker car, and we saw how quickly Hamilton closed down that 6 or 7 second gap after his first stop. Couldn't get past him, and they're like, well, the only person behind us is our teammate, and he's going to let us through. He's going to make it easy, so it's a no-brainer. Why not do it? Red Bull are in a tough spot.
And which is why they need a Sergio Perez in the mix as well to help, fix that problem. But you saw Max get on the softs. He was 3 seconds faster. It was hunting down Lewis. So if they brought him in earlier at least, 15, 16 laps to go at 3 seconds a lap closing the gap, then maybe we could have had something, towards the end as a fight as well. But, disappointing for Max. I'm sure he would have been feeling it.
But then again, if Perez was where he was supposed to be, 2 or 3 seconds behind Bottas, Mercedes aren't going to make that call to pit Lewis Hamilton when they did the second time as quickly and as boldly as they did. They're going to sit back and they're going to sit on it for a couple of laps and weigh up the options and go, Perez could make this hard. Should we do it? Should we not? They're umming and ahhing too.
Yeah,
and
it is a shame.
It's a shame. But Red Bull don't have the pace.
When it's that's clear. We're talking about this, the beginning of the year, and I was like, yes, finally, we've got a championship that's very, very close. And then last weekend and this weekend, Mercedes are like, see ya. Like, wow, where did that come from?
Yeah. I mean, for a possible 104 points after 4 races, the 25 for each win and 1 for the fastest lap, Lewis Hamilton is on, 90...
Well, he's well ahead of Verstappen
94?
now. He's well ahead of Verstappen now. And
yeah, but he's 94 points in with 4 races in. We're going, shit, he's won 3 of them.
Yep.
Come second in the other one.
And it still can be Max's victory this year. We're not saying that it's all over, but history would say that. Yeah, history would say
it's all over. Red Bull will make a comeback in the second half of the season because I think their upgrades and their off-track development has always been stronger than
you're right.
Mercedes.
You're right. Let's talk about Mercedes. Do you feel like the team's not that fully behind Valtteri Bottas sometimes?
Well, I think it's natural. We spoke about this yesterday on the pre-drinks. It's only natural for people within the organisation to flock around the leading driver and the leading person, the person that's performing more. I think there's people within the team that have Valtteri's full backing and support and probably loyalty because maybe Lewis has rubbed them up the wrong way or something's happened. And I'm the biggest Valtteri fan out there. I want him to win. I'm willing him to do well. But he just doesn't have the pace in the race pace this year. I mean, you've got Lewis Hamilton that's under pressure from Max and he's driving supremely well, in my opinion, at the moment. He's stepped it up another level again, in my opinion, from last year to this year because he's under pressure and he's got that fight that he wants. Lewis Hamilton always has a down patch within the season. It's just for how long. But the difference between Valtteri Bottas and a Nico Rosberg is that when Rosberg was in front, he had the pace in the car in order to keep Lewis Hamilton behind him and the composure and the skills in order to do it. So that's the difference between the two. Valtteri's had his chances. He's been in front of Lewis twice this year. And he's been passed by him twice on track, which is sending daggers through his hearts probably. But he's struggling. He's even said he's struggling compared to Lewis.
It is a tough one.
Yeah,
but of course...
but to answer your question, does he have the support? The cynicism, he says probably not. But the reality of the situation is...
Yeah, well, hopefully he does because he deserves it. Well, that's the race, Campy. Let's move on to our favourite part of finishing the race, and that is the Fantasy League, the Oz F1 Show Fantasy League. If you're not a part of it yet, feel free to join. It's not necessarily about who comes first, second, or third. It's about team names. And I tell you what, we've got some bloody crackers this time. If you aren't part of it, by the way, you can find in the description, the show notes, or YouTube, wherever you're watching or listening, below you'll find a link to it. Campy, the person coming first has Campy as the first word, which...
Yeah.
So what's the quote?
It's... Is that what she says?
You've done well. Let me say it. Campy.
Campy, is that what a she says moment? Bloody hell, I got it out. Third time lucky. But that is...
Oh, good. Well, that ends the show. Thanks so much for listening. No.
Is that what a she says moment? Exactly.
Well,
right
that was a massive... fail. Coming in second, down the inside, Joshua T. And in third, I like this one only here because my father bought me this team, Steen N.
I like that.
I like...
We miss Tommy T.
Rich Daddy Energy. I like that. Aston Martin. That's good.
Blue flags don't apply to those who frequently spit. That was from Haley H. And she was the first. I think she's the one that did the if Ricardo's going to lick my stamp.
Good.
Or that one. He can lick me or something.
So. Probably.
Clearly the banter from Haley is exceptional.
The most mentioned man in this podcast, who's never in this podcast, Dave Munnis, KO Roulette, which is the case. Yes. Terrible at the best of time. Any more of your favourites, Campy?
No, I think we mentioned. Oh, Maximum Pressure. That's pretty good. Yeah.
You pronouncing these is very good. Look, we take a look at all of these after the race, and we love them, and you should too, because not all of them are necessarily appropriate to say out loud on a podcast. To be perfectly honest, doesn't mean they're not funny though. You can find that link.
We dance a fine line.
Yes, there is a fine line. There's one more actually here, Karen Horner's Tears. I did like that too. Also, someone mentioned to me the other day that WTF1 are starting to use Karen Horner. So WTF1, I know you're listening. Stop stealing our stuff. That would be nice. Thanks so much.
No, don't be negative. We love our F1 community, the internet community. You got to be nice to them and polite to them. They do a lot of good things for our fans. Not what we would like to watch, but hey, good on them. They're doing a kick-ass job.
That bombshell of a compliment from someone who I wasn't expecting that from, it probably is time to end. Campy, mate, we're going to Monaco.
On that bombshell. Monaco,
bloody exciting.
back.
Daniel Rick, as we've said many times in this podcast, is probably going to have a good time around. If you've enjoyed this, please consider subscribing to us on YouTube if you're listening to us on audio, and same. We love the audio, guys. We love if you're watching us. It's such a pleasure to do this, and it's a pleasure to do this with you, Campy. We miss you, Tommy T, but not really. Enjoy your bloody holiday, mate. You've deserved it. He's driving into South Australia, and for Monaco, he's actually with me. He's coming up to the Free North, so he might be back. He might be back if I have a spare microphone to give him. Looking forward to that. But a shout out to him again, because he'll listen to this episode because he's not in it. Anyway, mate, that's it for this time around. Looking forward to discussing Monaco in a couple of weeks' time for our pre-drinks. Until then, mate, take it easy, and we'll see you soon.
Take it easy, will do.